Each one of my interests I share right here on YouTube through multiple different channels, but my biggest passion is firearms. I love getting a new gun or a new old gun, taking it to the range, box full of ammo, especially this time of year when it starts to cool down. There's really nothing better. But there's some unspoken rules to follow on the range so you don't become that guy. And that guy is the one we're going to reference today. And the whole idea of the video is that you have a safer, a better experience, and also so you don't end up on the internet being trolled by people or ridiculed for something really dumb that you did. Now, there's plenty of videos out there like that, and so hopefully today this video will give you some advice. If you've never been to a gun range, maybe you've been doing this for 50 or 60 years, either way, I'd love to hear from y'all. What are some examples that you can think of or that you've seen on the range that would constitute a that guy moment? Leave those things after the video. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Let's go and get into it. Now, I'm going to get the boring one out of the way first, but it is the most important, and that is simply following the rules of gun safety. These rules are very simple, and yet they are super easy to break. Now, I am not a safety Sally, right? I don't go around to everybody's table checking them and making sure all their slides are open and, all that kind of stuff. I don't go to that extent, but there is a level of safety that you have to have when you're on a gun range. You're around other people. You're not just responsible for you, but everybody else around you, and people expect you to follow those rules when you're on a public range. Now, I will say that in the real world, in a self-defense situation, you're in a crowded mall, a crowded grocery store, there's a would-be attacker, and you have to pull your gun in self-defense. If you're a concealed carrier or an open carrier or just carry a gun in general, there may not be just the bad guy that you're pointing your gun at. There may be other people in that vicinity or around them. So not everything can always line up as perfectly as it can at the range. But the idea is that if you're always keeping your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire, knowing what your target is and what's beyond it, you will go to those skills and use those not only at the range but in a real world scenario as well. But again, sometimes things don't always play out that well in the real world, but on the range, man, you got to follow those rules. It's the most basic thing that we have with firearms, but it's something you definitely want to stick with. Next one we're going to talk about is don't be a slob. Clean up after yourself. Now, this is highly dependent upon the range. I know my specific range, we have, people there that will clean up and stuff like that, but I don't expect them to always do that. Now, the pistol side of my range is a little bit different. They have guys that come in and do all that stuff. The rifle side, they have brooms, they have dustpans, so you can just clean up, whenever you get done shooting. It's just a common courtesy. If you've ever stepped on a round, empty casing on concrete, that is not a good feeling when you hit the ground. And so for that reason alone, if you're going to shoot, no matter how much you shoot, just clean up after yourself. Most nice ranges have buckets. They have trash cans. If you're shooting brass, put it in the buckets. If you're shooting steel, throw it away. If you save your brass, well, there you go. Most of you guys are going to clean up after yourself anyways. So it's just one of those things, man, just a common courtesy. Don't be a slob. Don't leave trash. These are places that we can all enjoy, and just clean up after yourself. It's pretty self-explanatory. Now, the next one I'm going to talk about, you may think sounds a little silly if you're a new shooter, but don't go out there with zero knowledge. You may be thinking, well, if I don't have any knowledge, I'm going out there to learn, how can I have knowledge before I go? Well, this platform right here has a bunch of quality content creators that you can follow that you can learn the basics from. How to hold a pistol, range etiquette, how to load a gun, how to shoot a rifle, how to zero your optics, what kind of ammo you should use, what kind of drills maybe you want to run. All of the basic things, all the way from basic to super advanced techniques, you can learn right here on the platform for free and gain a little bit of knowledge. It's like, I use this example a lot, but it's like going in to buy a motorcycle or a car and not having any idea what you want, but you go in there and expect somebody to just give you all of the answers, right? With the power of the internet and so many great creators right here on the platform. You can learn a ton. And this is how I did it. And yeah, it took me a lot longer, learning how to shoot, but I at least knew the basics before I went because of creators that are still doing the same thing to this day. So it's a great way to learn some of those basics, gain a little bit of knowledge before you go. There's going to be things you learn along the way for sure, and the only way you can learn some of those things is actually getting trigger time behind the gun. But I promise you it'll pay off if you do a little bit of research and just take in as much knowledge as you can before you even hit the range. Now the next one I'm going to talk about is invest some money into good eye and ear protection. This is crucial. Now, y'all have seen me wear aviators over the past year, year and a half. They are prescriptions, but they don't do as good of a job as a true ballistic rated glass. The core ballistic sunglasses that I wore for a period of time are fantastic. They're not prescriptions, so it's a little bit harder for me to see without those. That's why I wear them. And so, yeah, it's kind of hypocritical, but you got to have something to cover your eyes. I will watch some of my old videos sometimes when I'm trying to, gather clips for various videos, and I'll see myself shooting without any eye protection. And man, it's cringy to watch, dude. And, especially seeing some of the things that I have experienced since those days, man, things can go bad quickly. Even with factory ammo and a brand new gun, things just happen. And so you got to be able to protect your eyes for sure. And again, I understand that I don't wear the exact correct glasses, but if you wear prescription glasses, there's like little shields that you can get that go on the side and stuff like that, so you don't get brass that falls in between your eyes and the glass. So there are things that you can do to further protect yourself. Like I said, those core ballistic glasses are fantastic. They kind of hold to your face, but they're comfortable, right? And they have ballistic rated, protection glass. So really, really a lot of good options. But you definitely want to get something like that, just some glass to cover your eyes. And then, another thing is ear protection. Now, I have gotten away from ear muffs over the past couple of years. They're just really uncomfortable, especially when you're shooting any kind of rifle, essentially. And even though you have some low profile ones, I actually prefer a pair that I bought. I'm trying to think of the name of them, and I did a video talking about the essential range gear items that you need. I'll try to make sure I link that video somewhere in the description so y'all can watch it, but they're moldable. So you heat them up, you mold them to the inside of your ears, and now you have pretty much a flush ear protection. It's got a little cord that connects the two earpieces. It's got multiple earpieces, or inserts that you can use if you like foam ones or you like the polymer ones or whatever. So really a nice set, but good ear protection, good eye protection. And when you shoot at the range, if you have some friends with you or whatever, make sure everybody has those things on before you fire your first round. It's inevitably going to happen where you yourself even fire a gun for the first time and you're like, oh, I forgot my ear protection. It won't take many shots for you to realize that, oh, hold on, let me put in my ears really quick. So just make sure you invest in those things. Now here's another one that you want to consider, and that is don't be afraid to strike up a conversation with people. Now there are people that go to the range that do it on their lunch breaks. They just want to get in a few rounds. They're taking some time away from work, or they're on their lunch break at work. They're close enough to the range. If they're in a hurry and stuff, obviously you don't want to hold people up like that. And, it's fairly easy to tell, who's going to be there for a while or who's been there for a while, maybe who's willing to talk. People are going to walk up to you and talk to you. Don't be afraid to strike up some of those conversations. It just time and place, right? Some people, they only have one Saturday a month where they can go to the range. They probably don't want to spend an hour of that time having a conversation with other people, and that's totally fine. I absolutely understand that. What I try to do is I try to go during the weekdays because I'm fortunate enough to be able to do this as my job, and I don't want to take up a bay on a Saturday, right? There's people that go out there, it's really crowded on Saturdays, and I don't want to be that guy. I got cameras everywhere, and people didn't really ask for that, so I try to do it during the week when nobody's really there. But one thing I will never do, and you could ask anybody here that's actually met me in real life, is I will never turn down a conversation. Even though I'm trying to get guns done, I'm trying to get videos done, anybody that's ever approached me on the range that watches my stuff, I will always take a little bit of time to talk to them and, thank them and just have a conversation. And so there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Some people are going to come across, they don't want to talk, and, just whatever. It is what it is. If you ever see me on the range and you see me with all my cameras set up and everything, and you want to come over and say hi, dude, I will always take a little bit of time because, again, I feel super blessed that I get to do this as a full-time job. So I will thank the people that have helped support me and get me to this point. So if you ever see me on the range, no matter what I'm doing, come up, say hi. Me and Mrs. Heckshot or one of my friends or somebody will be there, and I'll definitely be willing to talk to you. And you yourself, don't be afraid to strike up a conversation because sometimes you can learn a lot from people that are right there at the range. Here's something that you really want to do before you go to a range for the first time is learn some of the lingo. Especially your ceasefires and things like that. You need to know that stuff. And I know at my range specifically, we have, noisemakers and we have, red lights that go off that tell people, hey, there's people downrange, ceasefire, everybody behind the firing line. And when those ceasefires are called, don't manipulate your gun. Get away from the table, leave the gun open, action open, on the table, leave it alone. If you want to load magazines, I think most places are okay with this as long as you're behind the line and you're doing it on maybe a bench or something like that, as long as there's no guns in the area. Even that sometimes can get you yelled at. And I know it, as grown men and women, when you get yelled at by somebody else, it can kind of infuriate you. But just understand that not everybody knows your intentions, right? And even though it is aggravating and it can piss you off, you still have to understand where they're coming from. You got to keep people safe. And at a range, things can just happen. And so you definitely don't want things happening during a ceasefire. And, the next point that I'm going to talk about leads right into this perfectly. Don't be that guy that changes his target every 10 minutes. We have 100 to 600 yards on the rifle range, okay? Now, when I'm on the pistol range, normally, like I said, I go during the week. I have a beta myself, so I can go spray targets, and y'all like to see the targets anyway, so that's why I do that. But, if you pick one Saturday a month, and you're calling a ceasefire, or, hey, can I go hang targets? Can I go spray targets every 15 minutes? People are going to get upset, and rightfully so. Now, if you go an hour, and there hasn't been a ceasefire called and you need to put up a new target or something, I think that's understandable. And I really like my setup at my range because you can actually drive down to, the 600, 500, 400 yard line. So you don't, nobody's walking down that far. So it saves a little bit of time. But again, just be courteous of other people and understand that not everybody has a ton of time they can use to be at the range. So just be courteous to other people and respect their time. They respect yours, and everybody can have as good of a time as possible. Now, here's one that you really want to look out for. Pay attention to your gun. Any weird sounds, any weird clicks, anything that doesn't feel or sound right, probably isn't right. Take a second to check things out. Squib loads are one of those things that they could happen, and depending upon the type of ammo you use, if you brought your reloads, they're underpowered or whatever the case may be, you really got to look out for these things. Most factory ammo, you're not going to have an issue with that, but even factory ammo and the most quality of guns can have these issues. So just pay attention to what's going on behind your gun. I love shooting fast, at least pistols. I like to shoot, either fast or a little bit quicker, and that's just the way I like to shoot my pistols, I enjoy it. But regardless, man, you still got to listen to your gun, and if things don't seem right, take a second, stop, check things out, and make sure everything's good to go. On that front too, you want to bring some kind of rod with you, so if you do get a squib load, you can knock that round back out. If you get a stuck casing, having a good rod is something you definitely want to have. Having gun oil and, maybe a way to grease your gun as well, just in case you have any kind of issues. That way you can address them while you're at the range and it's not going to slow you down or even stop your whole day. Now, here's a tough one. If you see somebody being blatantly unsafe, don't be afraid to speak up. They're being that guy at the range. you can be that guy that tells them to knock it off. Or if you don't feel comfortable with that, tell a range officer. If you see somebody being egregious in their gun handling, pointing guns towards people, or whatever the case may be, like I said, man, for their safety, your safety, and everybody else, don't be afraid to call them out. Now, I'm not talking if you see some guy that's holding a pistol and you think he needs to be holding it exactly like you hold it, like go up to people and calling them out for stuff like that. Now, if they're holding it sideways or upside down or, something that's unsafe, then yeah. But, if somebody's holding their rifle like this and you say, oh man, you should be doing a thumb overboard because of blah, 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 whatever, then that's just kind of being a dick. But I'm saying people that are being unsafe, if the range officer doesn't see them, tell a RO or tell them yourself, hey man, y'all got to knock that off. Now, the last thing I want to talk about so you don't become that guy at the range is just don't be a jerk. Now, there's a lot of ways to be a jerk, of course. But, specifically, let's use the example if you have an AR pistol, 7.5-inch barrel, unsuppressed, and you're just firing rounds off. I've been in this situation and it is really annoying, man. And these guys, they have 30-round mags, and just because you have 30-round mags doesn't mean you have to unload them every 5 seconds. And they're just unloading, and not hitting anything. Not hitting anything. Just shooting as fast as they can. It's obnoxious. I wish they would just take suppressors off of the NFA so everybody could own them without all the paperwork and all that crap. You can own a suppressor, but you know what I'm saying, without all the paperwork and extra steps and time that it takes to get one. But not everybody's going to go through that process. I understand that. And if you have a gun with a really loud brake on it, well, I mean, there's nothing you could do about that. But when you're just unloading rounds constantly, that can be pretty annoying. So I think it just comes down to consideration, man. Guns are loud. You're wearing good ear protection. Some are more obnoxious than others, but just having a little bit of consideration for the people that are there at the range with you, sharing that experience, and understanding that, again, some people only have one time a month or, once every 2 months that they can shoot. Just a little bit of respect goes a long way. All in all, though, man, I've rarely had to deal with any of this stuff because people are very responsible. And so it's nice, man, that you don't really have to deal with this stuff. But in order to not be that guy at the range, these are 10 things that I would recommend you either do or stay away from. I'd love to hear some of your ideas down below. If you like what we do here, consider joining us on Patreon, or you can join us on the channel right here and never have to leave YouTube for as little as $1 a year. Really, the support is much needed and appreciated. Big thanks to you guys. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.